Welcome back to another edition of Force Friday, where we talk about Star Wars theories, characters, concepts, comparisons, analyzations, collectibles, and more. And today we're going to conclude our saga list of top 10 figures I'd like to see in the 1/12 scale. Now, I say Black Series because it's just a turn of phrase. Once again, I don't care if Mafex or SH Figuarts would do it. In fact, I'd probably prefer it if the chips were down and I was forced to make a decision. That is, of course, they included two hoods with their Emperor. And just when you thought that you were out of the woods regarding lists, I have one more for you for the new year. As many of you know, and perhaps some of you don't, The Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite Star Wars film by far. And while I find it fun and enjoyable as much as I find almost any Star Wars content, when I start to sink my teeth into it a bit, I'm left underwhelmed, unfulfilled, unsatisfied, and disappointed. But that doesn't mean that I don't want the figures, because I do. And unlike episodes 7 and 8, where I feel like Hasbro did a pretty good job of knocking out the core cast, they really missed the mark here. Perhaps preoccupied with Troopers, perhaps Mandalorian's success, whatever the case may be, this is the one film that kind of went underproduced in regards to action figures from Hasbro since the Disney buyout. So we're going to start with number 10, Major Snap Wexley. One of the few kind of Resistance pilots that seem to have a personality all his own. Brought back from episode 7, so now we're talking about a character that's in at least 2 films. Had some speaking lines, will help fill out your ranks, which, as we all know, a lot of these bottom 5 on these lists end up being kind of background characters to fully realize a shelf or display or flesh out the ranks of an army. And Major Snap Wexley is no exception. And a fun fact, his nickname Snap stems from a habit of snapping his fingers when preoccupied. Number 9, Aftab Akbar. Admiral Akbar, who we know and love, has a legacy that lives on in that of his son, Aftab. And who doesn't want to protect the Akbar legacy? Plus, simultaneously fill out ranks of their Resistance shelves with supplementary characters and those that are visually interesting, right? So it's not all just sort of nameless, faceless guys in orange and white jumpsuits. You can throw in some Mon Cal folks and different aliens and make the ranks look a little bit more interesting visually. And plus, it's Akbar's son. Who wouldn't want him? Moving on to number 8, Claude, who I think we all thought was going to play a bigger part in this movie than he actually did based on leaks and marketing materials. But we see him in the Falcon and we see him on Agent Claus or whatever that planet was, the jungle planet. The visual guide says his eagerness to help the Resistance expresses itself in his keen mind and a talent for the mechanical, particularly in giving new life to antiquated systems. He joins the Millennium Falcon crew when the Cinta mission is originally believed to be a parts pickup. When it turns out to be the intelligence operation, complete with TIE fighter pursuit, he feels understandably overwhelmed. Once again, visually interesting. Once again, background character to help flesh out a shelf. But you have something like this, I think you could probably include it as an accessory to another piece or make it a 2-pack with something else. But stuff like this really makes a shelf look interesting. And then moving on to number 7, which I'm sure many people will be upset with my choice, but that's the thing about my choice. It's mine, and you can have yours whenever you'd like. But I'd like in episode 9, Rose Tico. I know she's not a well-loved character by many, especially in the collector community. However, I always had a soft spot for her and found her character to be somewhat endearing. One of the concepts that we're going to get to in this list specifically is that a lot of these characters in this film had a drastically different look than their previous costume designs, which I think makes it more important to get representations of them, whereas, ironically, the lead character doesn't look that different. Neither does the lead antagonist. And a lot of the other ones look similar between 7 and 8. But 9, a lot of characters get a pretty decent makeover, so it would be nice to have a different look for the shelf. Number 6, General Pride, who plays a major part in the First Order storytelling of this film. He was around from the days of the Empire. He was a seasoned veteran. It came through in everything about how he presented himself. I think this would probably be the last First Order character I would want. I think like once I got him, it would be a huge check on that box. I'd be like, nope, and I'm done. Not that he's a make or break character for the shelf, but he would have a huge effect on the shelf. So for that alone, I think I would like to see him make the 1/12 rank. ranks. And now that we're over the hill, we'll start with number 5. And a lot of these characters from here on out are pretty much updated versions or episode 9 versions, which have drastically new looks, but also would offer the chance for Hasbro to partake in the newer technology they've been using to make a more refined looking figure. And we'll start with Finn, who has a drastically different look in this film than he does the previous two. Very Corellian, very Solo-esque, different color palette, different hairstyle, different weapons. So this would be a completely new figure, which we don't always see. A lot of times the background characters in these films tend to be a bit more similar, but I do worry both with Finn and Rose, and perhaps a lot of these characters, that because of their peg warming, that we may not see them, to be fair. But when I'm making a dream list, I have the luxury of not caring about realistic possibilities. Which will take us to number 4, Uncharted Poe. Once again, totally different design. Yes, he looks like the dude from Uncharted. No, I don't particularly care. I do think he looks good with the rest of the cast, and on my shelf in particular, which is on Agent Claude, so he'll fit right into the old jungle theme there. I'm surprised that they didn't do the core cast of characters for a wave in this. It seems like they would have, with the first kind of wave being the more new supplementary characters. Like, it seems like they missed the boat a bit in not doing the core cast, which people have a connection to from the previous films. But this character is one, especially in this representation, that seems to have a lot of playability and a lot of kind of fun factor going along into the design. Number 3, Leia. So anytime I have the opportunity to get a Leia, I'm going to take her. And I'd love an episode 9 Leia to be on my episode 9 shelf. Yes, her outfit is very similar. However, I would still take it and be happy to display it and kind of have a more complete looking cast of characters. Due to the digital work, it is a new outfit, so that is something as well. But I've often said, usually when there's a Leia I want, it's going to be rare for her not to be at number 1. This is an example of one time where she doesn't land at number 1. In fact, she lands at number 3. So that asks a bigger question of who could possibly be on my number 2 or number 1 slots. And my number 1 may be a cheat, but my number 2 is Lando. I can't believe they didn't make a Lando for this film. A legacy character with a huge following and a huge fan base, who's been a part of Star Wars since 1980, who has 2 costumes in this film, either of which I'd be happy to have. And my episode 9 cast seems far from complete without having him around. In fact, even the idea of completing a original trilogy cast from the modern era is impossible unless they provide you with the Lando, which they failed to do, and I'm not sure I understand why on that one. I think they really went for the action-adventure theme with their episode 9, between Zori and Jana and all, or Zana, whatever her name is, and all that. 3PO with the bandolier and that. So in that regard, I can understand why they would have passed on a Lando, but then in that same breath, I don't understand why they didn't make Finn and Poe, because they both have that kind of adventure theme going on with them and design-wise in these films. So just a strange choice, but one I hope that they rectify. And then my number 1 choice are the Knights of Ren. So between SH Figuarts and Black Series, we have all but one accounted for. But the bigger question there is, will SH Figuarts actually ever make them? And I am inclined to say definitely not, which is a huge bummer, because a lot of people like the Knights of Ren. It goes beyond your kind of general sequel hater or anything like that. People that are into the comics, people that are into Star Wars on a wider basis, really enjoy the Knights of Ren and are looking forward to having a complete cast of those characters. So once again, visually interesting. Villains always sell. Villains always do well. A lot of the parts, I'm sure, can be reused, retooled, etc. from a financial standpoint to make life a bit easier on Hasbro's behalf. And I would certainly like for them to make these characters, especially since I have a diorama made specifically for them. But that would be the moment I did that diorama is the moment that I sealed the fate that it's never going to get made. No doubt in my mind. So that's my list of my least favorite Star Wars film. As you can see, there's still plenty I'd want. And there was a couple I had to scratch off the list in order to make room for all the people that I did want. So that's kind of how I roll with this franchise. That being said, hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are staying sane. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.